The African Marketplace by Abdullah Ibrahim is a song I paid attention to in recent years. Uh, why? Because of selling bags. So it fit the idea of markets, buying and selling. And so I used it in one of the posts, and then I got to love the song as a result. Kwakhona into engirealize-ke ngalelo culo manje ukuthi uyazi iculo, as much as maybe it is a depiction of a place that the master must have come across, not only here in South Africa, but in his travels abroad, where he stayed or where he worked. And was inspired to sing about it. I haven't checked. I'm sure if I were to Google, I will find out what that song is supposed to mean as coming from him. And so the song in my view and image in my mind of it is prophecy in a way, because it still is asking us how is the marketplace as Africa today? Are we gaining from it, or are we losing kuyona? So it's a song, with a big question mark about how much we gain from our trading. Maybe that's what it means to me. But I like other songs that is done, particularly the church sound. I love the church sound, or the township churchy sound. I love those sounds, and he's done a lot of songs that sound like that, and so I get glued to them, or attracted, or drawn to them very much. I was listening to one yesterday, Chisa. There's a little bit of that, and also Blues for a Hip King also has that as well. So there's several more that has that sound, that have that sound. So so we've learned a lot from the master, and maybe let me end it there and say that, hey, to those who are close to him, may they be comforted. And for us who are remaining, we've learned a lot, and we'll definitely be using those lessons from what he said and what he played as well. Yes. Hey. Okay. Namhlanje I want to speak about the meaning of the songs, or some of the songs that I've done over the years. Sometimes I don't like to explain what the songs mean, or the song means. Some other songs are stories, so it's easy to tell what the song means. Amanye kind of abstractish, so it's hard to know what it means unless it's explained to you. Um, uh, and so, yeah, I wanted to just take time to give you a bit of that. There are other videos that I still haven't finished, like the one for where I was showing you how to record a song. I haven't done that as yet, and so I still have to do that. I still have to finish that video. Another thing that I was like thinking that I said the other day that I wanted to clear out. Manje bekuyini leyo nto? Sengikhohlwe ukuthi yini enye kade ngifuna ukuyiclearisha out that I said in one of the videos. But mhlawumbe bengikhumbuleke. Yeah, so nginey'ngoma la eziwu-10 kwi-list, so we'll see ukuthi ngiyakwazi ukuyiqeda yini within at least 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes or 20 minutes, and see if I'll be able to finish talking about them. The first one that I want to do is a song titled Everyday People. Everyday People is a story, basically. It comes from the album, which album? Everyday People comes from which album? Let me just check quickly. I forget, but I'll tell you just now. Everyday People, right? Let's have a look. Let's have a look where it comes from. Right. Okay. Right. Where Everyday People comes from. It comes from. I think it comes from Lo-Fi Love. Yeah, it comes from Lo-Fi Love album. The album that came out in 2024. So, what does that song mean? Everyday People is a song about different people that lived in my community when I was growing up. In the song, the first character, it talks about a man who lived elokishini la ngangihlala khona. Angikaze ngimazi kahle. I did not know him very well. All I knew is that wayenetafula emakethe, edayisa emakethe. Because ngangingazi muntu wakwakhe la ehlala khona. So I assumed ukuthi wayehlala yedwa. So the song has that image of a man who stays in his house, who's alone, is in his house, and who has a table at the market, who's selling vegetables there. So, and then there's another character. There was a man in our village. That's how the song starts. He had a table at the market. Vegetables. Besithini konje leya ngoma besithini? Okay, let me just, even if I juggle up these characters, it's fine. And it talks about a policeman that lived in our township. But again, that character policeman, it's several policemen. It's not just one person. But in my mind, I have one that just that was that was always mingling with people. That was always with other men sitting, drinking, and enjoying life with the men in the area. We never ever thought that person was, or actually, I never ever thought that the person was ever, uh, uh, because of the work of police, was ever violent. Uh, emsebenzini ayisebenza kuwona, in his workplace. So I speak about him carrying a gun, but not having seen him using it. Some police were also kind in the township, and we've never ever seen them at their workplaces. So it talks about these people that we knew about, ama careers zabo, or ama occupations zabo, yeah, but we did not know about their deeper lives. We did not know about their deeper lives. We could only imagine what they were by what we saw. So the song is about that, and also it speaks about also a teacher in our village. I know one who would call me to come to his house so that I could teach me how to do accounting. But I also know another one. That one was a male teacher, and the other one was a woman teacher. There was a time when I did not go to school because my parents were at work, and when they were at work, we would note and not go to school because school was terrible sometimes to some of us, and we did not want to go because we'd rather not be there and be at home. So in a way, well, like all kids, I suppose that we they all feel forced to be at school. So we were like that, and she would tell my parents that I was not at school on that day, and then I would be scolded and punished for that, and be forced to go to school. So those people were our parents. They were not just teachers, but they cared about us going to school. And there's another character that that song is talking about. It talks about a doctor. I only know of one doctor in our township, which is the greater area of Ntuzuma and KwaMashu. It was my cousin's father who was a doctor in our area. Doctors were people that were rare in our township. And this is during the times of apartheid, when many careers were not could not be done by blacks. And so a few doctors was a big thing in our community. And so uh, uh, he was he was a beacon of hope in our community by being a doctor, something that was that rare. The other day I was in the township and we were talking with a friend I grew up with. And he says to me that, you remember umshoshisi owayehlala lapha phezulu ejwayele ukwehla njalo la adlule la. There was a man who was a prosecutor who used to live by our house. And he used to pass down our house carrying a briefcase. He was not even driving a car until maybe in the later years when he had a small car. And we were asking each other where that man went to. We did not know where he disappeared to. But we remember that there was a guy who used to be a prosecutor who lived up there. But I never told that story there. The story I tell about a judge is the story about Judge Pius Langa. He was not a judge at the time I saw him. I was looking after a house that was close to his home. And I used to see him every morning. He drove a BMW. I used to see him going to work, and I would see him coming back at night as well. So the song is talking about him. He used to wear thick glasses that we all know from media coverage. And so that song is also tells a story about him. I'm saying his name because he's a public figure and you all know him. And then there was, it tells also a story about a man that we used to travel with. When I went to, I was at tertiary, I think at the time. I used to take a bus to school, and then there was this man who used to preach in our bus. He had like really really special features in his face, in his look. He was like very, how can I put it? He was very different, but not in a bad way, in an okay way. He was different. You could just be able to just notice him immediately. But he was also charismatic as well. So his preaching was used to arouse hallelujahs in the bus and those kinds of emotions. He was quite a powerful preacher in that bus. So I never forget those faces. So the song talks about those people the way I saw them, not necessarily about deeper things that happened in their lives. That's why the song says that with all those different people, they all have some fragility, like all of us. Even a strong person like Iron Man or or Hercules or whoever, they have some weakness. In Superman, they say it's a kryptonite. They have some kryptonite in them. But all of us, the song ends by saying that we all need love. So that's song number one. And it has taken me something like maybe 10 minutes to talk about this song. I don't know if I'm going to do many songs, but I know that it's going to take me around about that time. Maybe not all of them. Maybe some of the songs haven't got a lot to say because they are not stories. Another song that I want to talk about is going to just go quick. There's a song titled 18,250 Days. That song is a song I did when I turned 50. How I got to that number, it was my first time calculating that number too. I calculated how many days are in 50 years. And using 365 days times 50 years, then I got that number of 18,250 days. But I later realized that if you are really using a proper calendar, proper calendar days, including leap years and all that stuff, then you get to 18,266 days, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 18,250 days. It's just a title for the real number. It's close, but it's a title for the real number of days one has in 50 years of age. So that one went fast. So that was the why I did that. It was just interesting to me to count it. I'd never counted it, that I'd lived 18,250 366 days. And I felt that that was like a small number. I thought we lived something like 60,000 days or something. Okay. And I thought that the album had to have that, had to have 50 years, but in style, not raw 50. So that figure is stylized 50 years. And then next song is The Imaginary World. The Imaginary World um, is a song about uh, reality and dream. Reality and dream. And so, which means that, or what the song is trying to say, that you can live in reality or live in a dream. You can live in reality or live in a dream. But uh, even if you live in a dream, you still live in reality because you can't escape reality, because reality is actually who you are. You exist. We are physical. We are in a physical world, in a now world, in a current world. Um, and so that is real, being here now and being noticed by others that we are here is real. But reality has a lot in it, you see. There's a lot. We have to accept it or choose to dream about it. You can accept that reality or dream about it. So that acceptance of reality means that you can choose to just not think about dreams and focus on reality, purely reality, and live life as it comes, according to what it gives you, and leave it as it is. Or you can innovate and realize that we have no aeroplanes, and decide that you want to design and build a machine that is flying, that is able to cover a longer distance without obstacles, and then give us a plane or create for us a plane. Or you can create for us a telephone and realize that it's always difficult to reach your loved ones who are across the seas or across mountains or across the rivers or across long distances. And then you will design or build for us an infrastructure for telecommunications by dreaming about it first and then make it happen in our physical reality. So that's the life of dreaming. You dream things into reality. So for me, music is actually that too. It's about dreaming things into reality. Things that never existed, we dream them into reality using music. For example, you can think of movies like Star Trek, Bakdala, ama-movies zama-70s lawa ayi-space, science fiction, space kind of movies. And today, most of those things that we used to see on those movies, we see them in real life today. We never thought that we'd have cell phones. But those movies, which are artistic, dreaming about the future, they actually did dream those things into realities. That's the power of dreaming, the power of music and all art in bringing things that are non-existent into reality. So, Imaginary World, the song, Imaginary World, the song is about living in a world of dreams. For example, the song specifically talks about my trio, the trio that plays in that song. The trio is non-existent because I play the piano there, I play the drums, I play the bass using the keyboard, as I've explained in other videos. And I also sing in that song. Singing is about explaining about the trio in that song. It says that this trio lives and plays in the imaginary world, or in an imaginary world, a world that doesn't exist. But the trio is there. It's real. The sound is there. It's a trio sound. But those people that you are supposed to traditionally see playing bass or drums are not there. There's only one person who has dreamed all of those people into reality in that song. So the song can mean a lot of things to us and to you, maybe, when you are listening to it. Perhaps when you are looking at the cover of the album as well, you can see quite a lot, seeing that road and a city in front of that road. That is the imaginary world is trying to dream us towards. To dream us towards. So that's the meaning of that song. I can go on forever about imagination, and I will never ever be able to finish talking about it. So let's go to the next one. The next song is, let me see. Hey, we've already sitting at 22 minutes now. What is this one? Love Groove. Love Groove is it's another imaginary kind of song. Love Groove is a song that I will never ever do. I'll never, I'll never ever do that song because the song is not what I do. But I wanted to taste it, to taste that kind of world when I created that song. I wanted to live in that world in a dreamy state, and the song then came into existence, and it starts with me greeting people in a way in a stadium that is full of people, or in a dome or something, a venue, big venue, because you can hear the applause, the shouts from people in the background. So it gives you an idea of a stadium or a huge auditorium that is full of people, and I'm greeting them, and I start this song that is quite groovy, not in the fashion that I've ever been Martin, not in a fashion that I've ever performed in, or maybe that I'll ever perform in. And what is nice about it also, I bring in a lot of Zulu language into the song, into that groove. And the song is also about the love of music as well, the love of the groove, itself, the love of the group itself. Because some time ago, I think when I started uh, with the Journey On band, I said that because previously I used to do Christian music. So when I started, I said that if you can listen to secular music and enjoy it, and have songs that you love in secular music, surely you should be able to do your own secular music because you consume it. It should not be a crime to create a secular song if you do consume it and you have your favorites that you love from radio and so on. So this love group song is one of those songs, the creating of something that I consume, that I love seeing from other artists doing. So yeah, that's a love groove. Okay, let's go on to another one. A Twist in the Tail. A Twist in the Tail is a song I did when I came out of the jazz improvisation course. Am I right? Yeah. Because when I came out of that course, I played a little bit of complex harmonies for the first time in my recordings, so or in my music, and playing them as myself. So that's the first song I played as myself in an album that was published. And so that song is yeah. That's what it is. It's just that, yeah. The title, A Twist in the Tail, it's a title that means that those who knew me as a gospel artist or a gospel songwriter or a Christian music songwriter, the story had now changed because I decided that why not secular music? So there was a twist in my story, in the story of my life when I started doing those songs. So hence the title of that song. Okay, that one, we've done that one now. What is another song that we have? There's this one that put me in trouble. I don't know why. I still don't understand why. No Singing in a Strange Land is a song I did that was basically about myself. It takes an analogy from a biblical story that was told about. It's something that we used to say at schooling, in our school when we were growing up, sisakhula. Babesenzisa lento ekuthiwa ngasemifuleni yaseBhabhela sahlala khona sakhala amahabho ethu bla 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 bla. Sengikhohliwe ngesiZulu ukuthi ithini leyo lokhuzana, leyo verse ababesishiso yona esikoleni sethu sisakhula. So I remembered that verse, and I wanted to do a song about it because now it had a different meaning for me. Because at some point I had to choose whether I wanted to go and be a performer in a broader musical industry or control my artistic expression by limiting its reach. by limiting its reach. So the song speaks about being comfortable, about performing in certain places, or it speaks about not being comfortable. And so it's a song that explains my situation as an adult who learned the art of playing a music instrument, and who learned more about the music industry when I was older. And while I'm at it, one of the things that people make a mistake about when they think about a person who is a musical artist is that, for example, myself, I play in my studio at home, and I publish my music to everyone, for everyone to see, or to gain access to it. And some people would think that, oh, this guy works alone, which means that he's greedy. He wants to work alone, he's greedy. No, no, no. It's nothing to do with that, because half of my other life, I worked with a lot of people. And there was a point whereby I had to decide that I want to learn an instrument. And playing an instrument is no child's game, especially when you have taught yourself. So there's a difference between playing in the studio and playing live, in a live performance. So you need to know how to play in a live environment. Playing in a studio, an artist who plays in a live environment can play in a studio, because if you can do it there, then you can do it in a studio. But a person who plays in a studio like myself, it can be hard to do it in a live environment, because I had to do a lot of practicing for that, and I have not really given a lot of attention to that. So for many reasons that are personal to me, I haven't spent too much time practicing for live performance, but I've practiced for recording. And when I record these songs, I try to make them realistic. I try to imagine, for example, when I do there's something that is called panning. When you are doing the recording, panning means that you can shift the sound to the left hand side, to the middle, or to the right, in front of you, right? That's what it means. So which means that I can place when I design this sound, or this band that I am composing, or that I am recording, this imaginary band that I'm recording, I place them on certain positions in the sound, and those positions are similar to a physical sound in a real physical environment. For example, if I pan the piano to the left hand side of my left, then, which is normally where the piano is when you think about many stages that you've seen, it will always be on your left. And then sometimes the drummer would be in the middle, and the bass would be on the middle, or the drummer, if it's a trio, the drummer would be maybe facing the piano on the right hand side, and then the bass in the middle. And then if there are horns, then you'll space them. Maybe you'll put them slightly towards the piano, or depends. Uh, but mostly, when I imagine the horns, I'll imagine them in a small kind of ensemble. They will be on the left hand side towards the piano, and then percussions. If we have uh, percussions other than drums, they will be on the right hand side towards the drummer. Not on the drummer's side, but just off the center on the right hand side. So I try to put these instruments according to how you would listen to them if you were in a physical environment. So so playing or playing for the studio, I try to be realistic in those ways, but also I try to play a drum in such a way that I will know that the drum has a kick, has toms, has cymbals, has a hi-hat, has a snare. So I'll have to when I record, I have to imagine the drummer, the hands, how many hands the drummer has, how many feet the drummer has. So I know that with his feet, he can play the hats. He can also play the kick. Two things with the feet. And then with the hands, it's either the toms or your rides and crashes and all those things. And also on the other side, you can play the snare on the left hand side, and also hit the hi hat as well with all the rims and all that stuff on all those things, or sticks, or just the sticks. I have to imagine those things and slot them in such a way that it doesn't seem like he has 100 hands. He can play every instrument at once. Sometimes I do take chances and do something that is not possible, because I can. I work in a studio, so I can give people an unbelievable sound, and so long as it sounds okay, it's fine, right? There was this song. There's one song where I had to add, which is realistic but unrealistic at the same time, because of economics or financial issues. I had to put a guitar towards the end of the song. That doesn't normally work, because in a song that runs for 6 minutes maybe, you can't just have a guitar playing for a few seconds at the end of the song, because you are wasting personnel there. You're wasting manpower, which means that you paid, because at the end of the day, it boils down to rands and cents, or dollars and cents if you are abroad. So it means that you have to pay for that person for playing for a few seconds, which doesn't make sense. So you have to think about that as well. That in a real world, would you have someone playing for a few seconds at the end of the song? If maybe you were using a a synthetic machine, or a synthesizer machine of some sort, that is able to give you that drama, then it's possible. You can just press a button and the guitar plays without having a real guitar playing it. That is possible. You can do that if you are using that. But in a real world where you use real people who play instruments, then it becomes not economical to have someone playing just for a few seconds. They'd rather play throughout the whole concert if it's a concert, or the whole song if it's a song. So I take into consideration those things when I do the recordings. I try to make it real, although it's in the studio. Okay, so some people would think that we are greedy by not mingling with other musicians. No, I think, uh, the biblical verse that says that everything has its time. I think it's an important verse to consider, uh, because we do things ngesikhathi sazo azizenzi noma inini izinto ezenzayo. So if I do this now, I'm doing this for a reason. One day then I will do the other stuff. Maybe one day I'll have skills enough skills to play a live performance, and be comfortable with that. And so currently I'm not. I can't just go in there and be part of a physical trio because I've not really given myself time to play in that space and practice in that space. And that's not me. Yeah, that's not my experience. That's not doesn't speak to my resources, whatever the resources are in my case. It doesn't speak to my reality, log. So I don't do it as a result. I do what I'm doing because it's what I can do at the moment. Yeah. So do we have more time to? Already we are going to an hour. Do we have more time to do more songs? Maybe let's do one more. Ah, there was a song that I did in one of the albums. I don't remember albums. Forgive me. I never remember easily because it's actually many albums. It's over 20 albums, so it's really hard to remember sometimes where the song is from because there's also a compilation album that has over 30 songs, I think. So it's hard to know where the song is from sometimes. So this one, it's titled "When God Was an Outcast." When God was an outcast. So the song is about betrayal. The song is about betrayal. Uh, how can I put it? It's about betrayal. Uh, it's about someone who has worked with people or been with certain people and worked with them and felt that at some point they betrayed him or her. Uh, uh, so we all know those stories whereby we might have benefited a person or people or friends or family or anyone. And at some point, then we feel this sense of betrayal and not remembering that at some point you were a good person to that person or you benefited them in a certain way. So it's a song about all our experiences, or experiences that we all come across. That's one of the songs, and another one is That Secret Place. Secret Place is a theme I like very much because I love these hidden places that are gems that are hidden away, far away. I like those things where I'm able to be free and enjoy life in a different way. There have been to places whereby I feel like I'm alone, and I'm able uh, to experience life as myself, which is hard in a space where everybody knows you. So in those secret places, we are able to just enjoy being you. Uh, uh, Somebody was saying in one of the videos that individuals or people have different personalities. You might meet me in a certain place being a certain person who is like this and that, but somebody else knows me as a person who is like this and that, and another one somewhere else knows me as a person who is like this and this, and somewhere else someone knows me as this and that. So all those personalities are still me, although they are all different, but they still me. For example, there was something that was like interesting to me about the people I know. I was realizing that whenever I meet someone I know from 30 years ago, 50 years ago, if it's, well, can't be 50 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, or 30 something years ago, I always see them or experiencing them being the same person. I never ever experience them differently. I always realize that they're the same. It's like when a person comes, meets you, a person that you know from long ago. It's like when they meet you, they immediately go back to their old personality. You can hear stories about them being this personality, but when they are in front of you, that personality goes away. They are this person you knew from childhood. That is fascinating to witness all the time. If people are afraid of this person, you are not afraid of them because you know them from childhood. You know their dreams as a child. You know they know your dreams as well if they were your friend. So that's like fascinating. I read about it recently that it's a psychology has a term uh, about that reverting back to the to your old personality, to a familiar personality. Uh, and so that is very interesting, that issue. There was something, another term that I like from physics that I picked up from reading when they talk about quantum physics and what is this other physics, classical physics. Uh, that there's this thing that is called collapsing an experiment in physics. Collapsing an experiment in physics. So collapsing an experiment means that, I don't know if I'm saying it the right way now. I've used the term a number of times, but I always forget. But the idea, you'll get the idea. So that term talks about uh, and that when the physics experiment is done, when there is an observer, actually it's called an observer something phenomenon or something like that. I don't remember the actual term that they use. The observer effect, I think it's the observer effect or something like that, that it collapses the experiments. Once you put observation on the experiment collapses, which means that, for example, if you're putting an observer in a physical science experiment, which means that you are putting a mechanism that observes, that measures what is going on in the experiment itself, which means that as soon as you put that tool inside, it disturbs the experiment itself, which means that that experiment has collapsed. It's no more. It's no more the experiment that it should have been without you observing it. It becomes a I don't know if you are getting it. It's no more what it was supposed to be because you've put a rod inside that measures something inside, or the water level or something inside. And that means that the water is no more the same inside because you've put this other thing to observe the level or the whatever is going on inside that experiment. So with people as well, I've realized that as soon as there's an observer, amongst us, an observer, meaning that I might be with my friend from long ago, but as soon as another person comes in who was not part of this friendship, everything changes. Everything changes because the experiment, it's like the experiment collapses there. The experiment that was happening between the two of you when you were alone. As soon as this other observer comes in into the conversation, my friend becomes a different person again because there is an observer. Now he's playing to this observer, not just to me. So I begin now to see these different people when there's a third person. I begin to see these two different people in him or her. That's quite an interesting one. So that's for for thinking for thinking further about life. So that secret place allows us to be this person that you want to be. Maybe that your friend from childhood doesn't know or anyone knows, but in that secret place you can be that person. So the song is about that basically. I'm sure that many of you would understand what it means for you. And then do we have to the last song that we can do? I think I can't go to 10 songs. Maybe I'll do only 9. Maybe I'll do only 9. And the last one then in the 9 songs will be She'll Never Know. The song is about it's not about a woman. It's about even men. It's about even men. It's about synchronizing. What is synchronizing? Synchronizing is when, let's say, two rotating things are rotating at different speeds. This one is rotating at 100 kilometers. This one is rotating at 120 kilometers. In order to synchronize or to make them spin or rotate at the same speed, you have to find at which speed each of these wheels are turning and match the speed of one wheel to the other so that when you want to join them, they synchronize. So the song is about clashes in relationships because of not being able to synchronize or to match our speeds or our rhythms or not being able to be harmonious because somehow we are spinning at different speeds and we're not being able to lock into one speed and spin in the same speed and be in harmony or in unity and do and work towards the same goals. So the song is about relationships in general. That most of the time you sort of know that you are wishing well for the person, but the person may seem that they do not know that you are wishing well for them in the way you are doing things, and so we are not being able to be in sync because there is no belief that we are doing things so that everything works together. So it becomes like we are pulling apart while we are trying to synchronize. So that happens in many relationships. Thina ke sisibhadala, we're older, we know that that's an old story in many relationships where there's lack of trust between parties or partners, where the other doesn't believe that the other is doing what it does for the well-being of everyone, and they think that they can't trust the other person. So you fail to synchronize, and that's why the song says she'll never know that how power she has, or she'll never know that she is not far from synchronizing. Although it doesn't, it never works out that way. It doesn't end up synchronizing in most cases. Although, let me end it there. Sometimes it never synchronizes in most cases. Hence the problems that we are having of failed relationships and so on. So these are the songs that I wanted to do, and I hope that you are going to understand them the next time you listen to them. Have a great remaining hours of this afternoon.